Hello, it's right before Shabbos Vaera, so let's learn a bit about this parsha. Well, obviously the hero of these few parshas is Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu is introduced into the Mikra as an anonymous child born by two anonymous parents. Even his name, the way we know it, was given to him by his adopted mother, Bitya Bat Paro. Don't really know anything about him. We know that at the age of 80 or something, he was off to he was in Midian. We don't even know what he did there all those years. And we know that he had a sister which was anonymous, and finally, towards the end of the parsha, we know he had a brother, Aaron, which was last week, and he was very happy that he was appointed as a redeemer and as a prophet. And then all of a sudden, in the beginning of his shlichut, in the beginning of his final appointment, in the beginning of this week's parsha, in Sheni, we have Vaydaber Hashem Moshe v'Aaron v'yitzavem b'nei Yisrael. Here we have finally God has appointed Moshe and Aaron to be, so to speak, the redeemers of taking the Jews out of Egypt by being in dialogue with Pharaoh. And then we suddenly have a group of psukim, which are basically the genealogy of Moshe and Aaron. Here we talk about who are the heads of the families of the Bnei Yisrael, and it starts with Reuven and his family, and Shimon and that family, and finally we come to Levi, which we know had Gershon, Kahat, Umerari, and then we happen to know that Kahat had a few sons. One of them was Amram, the other was Yitzhar, Chevron, Uziel. And then we have that Kahat had married Yocheved, the daughter of Levi, and he had Aaron and Moshe. So suddenly we realize that Moshe Rabbeinu, which was Mr. Anonymous, adopted waif found on the river Nile, all of a sudden actually has uncles, cousins, grandfather, grandparents, parents, a sibling, and we got not just that, we start telling you who are his cousins are, who is his nephews and nieces, and who's his sister-in-law. And then they had children. One of them was Elazar, and Elazar married out of the family of Putiel, which some think it means Yitzro, some think it means Yosef. We're really going very far in describing the whole familial background. And finally, it culminates by saying, who are Aaron and Moshe? These family people are Aaron and Moshe, which God said, take the Jews out of Egypt. They are the speakers, they are those who are in dialogue with Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to take the Jews out of Egypt. This is Moshe v'Aaron. Thrice in one pasuk, we say, they is Moshe. Who are the they? These are the people that we mentioned within context of their families. It's a very, very unbelievable contrast between the original introduction of Moshe, which is Mr. Anonymous, son of Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous, put into a basket and found and named by X, by Bitya, and all of a sudden the man has a family and cousins. And what is the idea here? Well, it would seem to be that the original not naming of Moshe implies that whoever he was as a person is not the reason he was appointed. He was not appointed because of background, he was a blue blood or anything. He was designated for this from the beginning of time. And this is what the Maharal writes in his book, Vaera Hashem. That's why we don't mention the family background. We don't even say his name. We don't discuss his education. We don't know a thing. We just know this person was set aside in history of being that person which should be the ultimate giver, bringer of the Torah to Am Yisrael, the prophet, which is an open, face-to-face dialogue with God, and he who redeems us from Egypt and brings us to the threshold of the promised land. But then the Torah says, you know something, I have to tell you who the person is, because in order to redeem a people, you have to be part of them. You will never bring redemption to a people that you're high and haughty and above. They must see you as part of them, and you must see yourself as part of them. If you think you can really make a difference to the world and to society, feeling above it, I'm sorry, the pasuk says that's not true. You may be very special, you may be designated to this by God, but it won't work unless you have an uncle, a cousin, a grandfather, nephews, nieces, children, etc. God seems to be saying that the people that talk to Pharaoh have to understand the pain of the people. And the way to understand the pain of the people is being part of the people. Yes, it is these people who are part of the people, feel the people, they're their flesh and their blood. It's not just Moses that was raised in the royal palace that can be the leader of the nation. No, it's Moses, the grandchild of Levi, the grandchild of Yaakov, the son of Amram, the uncle of Eliezer, and so on and so forth. That is one idea which seems to be very clear here. You know, for us, you know, sometimes people come back from Israel and they, oh, who knows what, holier than thou. You'll never make a difference. The only difference you'll be able to make is only if you feel you're part of your family and part of the community, and you like the community to rise and see its potential. But sitting high on a hobby horse God will not have anything to do with it. You will not redeem a world, you will not make a better world, you have to be part of that world. But there's something even profounder. You see, when we look at Moshe, you sometimes wonder, we know him as a prophet, and we know nothing about him, actually, his private life, until we only know he was married at a certain age and had 2 children, and we know nothing about the man at the personal level. We know him as a teacher, we know him as a prophet, we don't know him as a person. Sometimes you think he's just a epical historical figure, and he's not a person. He almost becomes in our eyes an idea. And when people tell me Yachol kol ish lios ke Moshe Rabbeinu, sometimes I chuckle. I'm not sure what Moshe Rabbeinu was. Does it mean I can be a prophet like Moshe? No, I can't be a prophet like Moshe, because the pasuk says mefurish that what? That no one will ever come to be a prophet at the level of Moses. He knew God face to face. By definition, that was the quality of his scholarship, which I will never attain. So, Yachol kol ish lios ke Moshe Rabbeinu, what does that really mean? Oh, he was very humble. Granted. Does that what it means, that you can be humble? But if I was designated by God for a purpose, and I knew God face to face, wouldn't I also be humble? So what does Yachol kol ish lios ke Moshe Rabbeinu mean? And the answer to that lies in a Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara says in Chulin, Daf Kuf Lamed Tes Amud Beis, the halacha is that if you see a nest with a bird, pigeon, roosting over its eggs, so what you do is you shoo away the mother and you take the eggs to yourself, and this is called Shiluach Haken. The halacha is it's supposed to be on the earth, or something connected to the earth. So the Gemara has a question, what's the halacha if you found it on the head of a person? You know, it reminds me of the old hats in Ascot races where the ladies used to wear these unbelievable hats with fruit baskets on top of them, etc. You know, and so, oh, you found a pigeon coop on the hat on the head of a person. What's the halacha? The Gemara says something unbelievable. Gemara says, because the pasuk says v'adama al rosho. Now, what's adama and what's afar? Adama is a word describing earth when it's still on its base and ground and attached. Afar is disattached earth, we call that dust. If it says in the pasuk you have Adama, you have earth on your head, that meant that earth is not disattached. It's still connected to its source. It's basically saying that although you're offer atavel, offer tashuv, you are perceived as earth. And therefore, wow, on top of your head is perceived on the earth. In light of that, that's what man is. Man is earth. Obviously, it means to say that earth is the mother of all potential. It's the lowest thing, and yet nurtures and creates the bounty of all. That's what you are. You're the man of tremendous potential. But you're just basic and lowly. But you can grow and can be very special. And then immediately Gemara starts saying things like, as a statement, Moshe min HaTorah min ayin. Where do we know Moshe is in the Torah? And that's a bit of a ridiculous question. What do you mean? The Torah is full of Moshe. Says, no. We know a lot about Moshe Hanavi. We know a lot about Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher, our prophet, our leader. Who's Moshe? Who is he? I think many people know this rabbi, this teacher, that teacher. Oh, he's a charming teacher, great. Who's the guy? I'd like to see him in his pajamas. What's he like as a person, as a husband, as a father, as a neighbor? Who is he? You always wonder, who is Moshe Rabbeinu? As I said before, he's mystery man, which became a prophet. He's great scholar, which, wow, where did it come from? We really don't know. The pasuk doesn't say. It doesn't say who taught. How did he become a prophet? Did he wake up in the morning, he had Jack Daniels and became a prophet? Like, how did it happen? How do you know what to do? He didn't even grow up between the Jews. And the Gemara says, you know who Moshe was? Moshe is seen in his personality in a pasuk at the end of Bereshis, Parshas Bereshis, B'shigam hu basar. Beis Shin Gimel Mem hu basar. God says, I can't have all that many complaints about man, because at the end of the day, man is only flesh and blood. Man is only mortal, and he is weak. The Gemara says B'shigam is the otiot, is actually the numerical value of Moshe. Moshe is Mem Shin Hey, which is 345. Shin is 300. Mem is 40, and Hey is 5, 345. B'shigam, Beis and Shin are 302. Gimel makes it 305. And then once again, Mem is 345. B'shigam hu basar. Read that pasuk as Moshe hu basar. Moses, magical man, is just a person. Just a person, suffered the trials and tribulations of us all, born of flesh and blood, a family man with all the intricacies and complications that brings, having the baggage of a father and a grandfather and a cousin and a niece, etc. He's John Doe. He's just Adama. He's just Basar, which Basar means Adama, right? Lowly entity which had potential. We haven't described how he got there. We know he was meant to get there, but it means to say he had to go through hell and high water to get there. And he did. Remember, Rav Hutner once taught me that one of the terrible things about these so to speak, these childish rabbinic biographies, they all describe how great the person was. Rav Kook learned Shas every year, 70 blot a day. What did it take for him to get to that? No one tells us the story. You think he was born that way? Do you think the Chafetz Chaim was born that way? Do you know his trials and tribulations? Do you know these nisyonos? You don't know them. I look at, sometimes there's an autobiography written by Rabbi Yaakov Emden, where he actually describes his hard life. He describes how he withstood the nisayon that Yosef had with Eshes Potiphar. He says, I had the same issue. You won't find that in your typical rabbinical biographies. Rare to find that, but I'm saying from him I learned to others. And here the Torah is telling you, Moses, mystical Moses that you started with, before we go further, understand he's a person. He's a family man. Moshe Basar. And he grew up in hedonistic Egypt. Can you imagine what living in the royal palace of Egypt was like? I mean, Egypt was the seat of hedonism. It's, goodness sakes, it's the pasuk says, Zirmatsu sim zirmatam. They were so lewd that, let's just say that Father's Day was a very, very not clear day to anybody in Egypt. Every family had a few Bukharot in it. And that's where he grew up. He didn't grow up in Mea Shorim. He didn't grow up in Volozhin. He grew up in Brother Deer in New York City. Went to Ramaz. I don't know where, Halavai. He went to PS 49. And look what he did. I can only imagine his trials and tribulations. And that's what I have to think about. And that's the message of this parsha. Moses is not just mystery man from heaven. Moshe hu basar. I hope and pray that people would take this to heart and understand, every person can be like Moses, just as Moses bootstrapped himself. From a cultural, not easy beginning. And, well, I don't know how he got there, but he sure as who knows what did. And I guess we all can realize our potentials. I wish and I pray that all of us should work hard to realize our potential and make this Kriyas Torah something personal and meaningful. Have a great Shabbos.